Normal looking photos that have a disturbing backstory. The girl in this photo was arrested for torturing and killing animals. She filmed herself doing it and even posted it online. She hanged her dogs by their collars, nailed them to walls, and even shot them with an airsoft gun. She would then cut them open and rip out their internal organs. This sweet looking little girl is Jeannie, also known as the Wild Child, who spent the first 13 years of her life chained to a chair, and this photo was taken moments after she'd just been rescued. This normal looking scenic painting features the ocean with the night sky. However, it was painted by Adolf Hitler, whose dream in life was to become an artist. However, he failed the entrance exam to art school and ultimately gave up. This photo of Richard Hickock and Perry Smith shows two murders after hearing that they'd been sentenced to death. They murdered a family of 4 and planned to rob them, but they found nothing worth stealing except for a mere $50. The girl on the left is wearing a wire. The girl on the right has no idea. Together they stabbed one of their friends to death, and the girl on the left confessed to the police and is now cooperating with them. Besides the pixelation, this looks like a couple getting married surrounded by their loved ones. However, all the children in this photo were horribly physically and mentally abused until a couple of them managed to escape.
Nobody has been able to explain this creepy viral video. For the past 11 years, a man who runs a TikTok account by the name of Dude My House is Haunted has been pretty confident that there has been some paranormal activity within his home. He claims that ever since his wife passed away, there have been some strange and unusual things going on. So eventually, he decided to leave cameras out and record what was happening and post it onto TikTok, which is the footage that you are about to see. In this video, you can see a chair seemingly moving on its own. It moves somewhat slowly until it suddenly is violently pulled into the corner by the kitchen. A mysterious, shadowy figure can be seen moving behind the chair, and then suddenly out of nowhere, the chair is thrown into the kitchen. Now, of course, we're not really sure what happened in this video, but I'm having a hard time coming up with an explanation for this one. Scary Unexplained Mysteries Part 2. Let's go. It had been over a month since Pauline Picard was reunited with her family, and everything was peaceful, until something horrifying was found that reopened the whole entire case. A man who was biking near the Picard household came across what appeared to be the dead corpse of a child, along with the skull of an adult man. And worst of all, the clothes that Pauline Picard was wearing the day she disappeared were found folded neatly next to the dead bodies. This sent the village into yet another panic, and it caused the Picard family to wonder if the girl they had living with them was even their daughter. The family eventually concluded that the girl that was living with them was not their daughter, and they returned her back to where she came from. Not knowing where else their daughter could be, the Picard family eventually accepted that the body found near their house most likely belonged to Pauline. Authorities have never been able to track down the murderer, and to this day, nobody knows for sure who the body and the skull in the meadow belongs to. Maybe she's still out there.
Here are 4 signs that you could be a psychopath. Number 1, you get bored easily. You always need a sense of excitement in your life, and you get this by taking extreme risks or even playing with other people's minds. Number 2, you're more rational than others. As long as you're not bored, you don't really care about negative emotions such as grief or anxiety. This allows you to stay calm in a crisis, and even when your own life is in danger. Number 3, you lie a ton and you don't know why. You lie even when there's nothing to gain from lying. Sometimes you lie just because of the pleasure that you derive from doing so. 4, you never own up to your actions. Even when you know it's your fault, you still decide to blame it on others. And despite this, you never feel guilt.
A worldwide police notice has been issued for a missing college student who traveled from the US to the Dominican Republic for spring break. And despite a massive search being underway, she is still nowhere to be found 6 days later. Sudiksha Kunaki, who is only 20 years old and studying medicine at Pittsburgh University, went to the beach with a group of friends after clubbing at about 5 a.m. After about an hour, most of the group called it a night and headed back to the hotel. But Sudiksha stayed with the guy that they met while they were out, named Joshua Ribe from Iowa, USA. say. In fact, this was the last known security footage of Sudiksha headed to the beach. It looks like she was quite drunk and unstable and in the arms of the guy who is believed to be Joshua. The two of them reportedly went swimming in the ocean together and the waves were pretty rough. Now, Joshua gave authorities 3 different accounts of what happened next. The first being that he was hit by a big wave and started to feel sick. He asked her if she was okay before going back to the shore and passing out on the sand. When he woke up, she had vanished, and she's never been seen since. The second account was that before he fell asleep, he saw her in knee-deep water. And the third account being that he saw her walking along the shore before he passed out. Now, sources say that translation issues could have been the reason for those differences. Authorities have speculated that Sudiksha may have drowned, but because they still have not found her body on land or at sea, they released this worldwide missing persons police notice. Yesterday, her father called on authorities to expand search efforts because he is growing concerned that she was kidnapped or trafficked since her body never washed ashore. Now, police say that there were no signs of violence and that Joshua is not considered to be a suspect at this time. But of course, as we know more, I'll keep you guys updated.
Weird human body facts that I can guarantee you didn't know. When a baby is born, its blood volume can actually fit inside of a can of soda. When you blush, the lining of your stomach also blushes. And that's kind of weird, but it's even more weird to think about, like, how the fuck do we know that? 1 out of 5,000 children are born without an asshole, and the doctors have to create one for them. And it's a really weird birth defect to have because we literally start out as assholes.
Dark things Disney doesn't want you to know, part 3. So today I'm going to be talking about the mysterious case of Deborah Gale Stone, aka Debbie Stone. Debbie Stone was an 18-year-old hostess at Disney. She was a hostess for the ride America Sings, which was a musical performance. This was a new attraction, and basically you'd be sitting in a theater facing the stage, and after every act, the theater would rotate. In 1974, during the last performance of the night, Debbie got caught between the rotating wall and the stationary stage wall. She was instantly crushed to death. The scary part is that the audience heard her screams but thought that it was part of the show. Now, the big mystery is, how did she get caught in the first place? Some say that she fell between the 2 walls, others say that she was trying to jump from one stage to another and then got caught, and other people think that she was pushed. On that day, Debbie had just gotten engaged and was super excited and was showing all her coworkers her ring. Apparently one of them was really jealous. But to this day, we sadly still don't know what truly happened to Debbie. Make sure to like for part 4.
An explosion rocked the campus in Lubbock, Texas. Fire and smoke erupting from underground. Students rushed to safety as power outages spread across campus. Firefighters flooded the scene, battling blazing manholes as officials scrambled to contain the crisis. Texas Tech shut down the school for the rest of the week, urging students to go home early for spring break. The cause still unknown. But with the entire campus losing power, the investigation is just beginning.
Sources are now saying that Hugh Jackman will also be deposed for the Blake Lively-Justin Baldoni case if it goes to trial. So reportedly, Justin Baldoni's legal team wants to get the full scope of Ryan Reynolds' conduct during the time that It Ends With Us was filming. And part of that will be deposing Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds' co-star in Deadpool and Wolverine, and a friend of Blake Lively and Reynolds. An insider reportedly said Hugh will be deposed if this goes to trial. There's no way that he cannot. The source also pointed out how Hugh Jackman helped promote It Ends With Us in, quote, the same way that Taylor did when they did their group shoot for the cross promo with Deadpool. The source said the timing of the premieres is also no coincidence. Honestly, it would not be surprising if Hugh Jackman is deposed because Deadpool and Wolverine was filming around the same time as It Ends With Us, and so Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman were spending a lot of time together, and likely with Blake Lively as well. So if he has any information that could help Justin Baldoni's team, they will utilize that. Again, none of this is happening anytime soon. Depositions are part of the process before a trial. So if the trial does happen in 2026, as it is currently set to, then depositions will be happening. And Hugh Jackman and Taylor Swift could be some of those deposed.
There's a mother in Texas that is adamant that this body in the museum is of her son. Kim Eric Smith is the mother of Christopher Todd Eric. In 2012, her son passed away under unusual circumstances. She believed that he was poisoned with cyanide and then his body was sold. Initially, authorities said that he passed away due to natural causes. But months later, Kim was notified by the medical examiner that her son's blood contained lethal doses of cyanide. When Kim saw this body in the museum, she said mother's instinct, she knew that it was her son. Here's a photo of them side by side. Not only that, but the body and Eric's had similar scarring, which is really freaky if you ask me. All Kim wants to do is to shed light on this and to bring her son's body home and have a proper burial. If this is true and his body is on display for financial gains and was sold off to the museum, that's insane.
Disturbing facts that will ruin your life. When whales reach a certain age, they will eventually be too weak to swim back to the surface for air, so they will just suffocate to death and eventually sink to the bottom of the ocean. When you die, you will be aware that you are dead until the moment your brain fully ceases function. When getting laser eye surgery, you can smell the parts of your eyes being shaved down. During the French Revolution, where the guillotine was introduced, the people to be executed fought to be first, as the blade would dull after multiple uses, and wouldn't cut a head clean off at the first attempt. If you're male, after you die, your loved ones can have a doctor electrocute your prostate to force you to ejaculate for sperm. Humans have enough bite power to bite off their own finger, bone and all. The only thing stopping us is our brain's natural safety factor. A deceased human body can take between 24 to 48 hours to decompress, releasing the remaining blood, urine, and fecal matter, depending on the situation, position, and method of death. If you die on a submarine, they put your body in the fridge with all the food. If not, up a torpedo tube. It's actually common that corpses will periodically burp, fart, gasp, groan as gases escape through the mouth and anus. When you get burned by electricity, it actually leaves marks shaped like lightning on your skin. Hit the plus sign if you want to learn more facts.
Dangerous things scientists did to themselves. Henry Smolinski was tired of working his job as an engineer, so he decided to quit and pursue his dream, which was to make the world's first flying car available for anyone in the world to purchase. His plan was to take a Ford Petna and put it together with the tail and wings of a Cessna Skymaster plane. After a bunch of successful test flights, the public launch was only a few months away. But one day, when Henry and his co-founder was doing further testing, they came crashing down. Due to bad welds and bad locking mechanisms, the wings failed and they crashed. Unfortunately, everyone in the flying car passed away.
Here's some crazy things that people originally resisted. Streaming services were laughed at first, with TV networks insisting nobody would ever want to watch movies or shows on the internet. Online dating was considered desperate by people in the 90s and early 2000s, thinking only the socially inept would meet partners on the internet. Self-checkouts were seen as confusing, with the early users insisting they were slower and less convenient than real cashiers. Movies with sound were considered a gimmick, with silent film actors, critics, and audiences in the 1920s thinking talkies would never replace cinema. They were wrong. The Walkman was ridiculed by critics in the 1980s, insisting that nobody would ever want to listen to music alone on the go. Ebooks were hated by book lovers, with many refusing to believe digital reading could ever match the feel of paper. Airplanes were thought impossible, with respected scientists in the early 1900s claiming humans would never achieve powered flight, just 2 years before the Wright brothers proved them wrong. Cars were mocked as impractical, with people in the early 1900s calling them a passing fad because horses were way more reliable.
Which of these facts is the hardest to believe? According to statistics, lightning strikes men 7 more times than women. About 50% of the people in the world have never had a phone conversation. Just 1 drop of liquor can make a scorpion stab itself to death. A shark can detect 1 drop of blood from 100 million drops of water. Astronauts are forbidden from eating beans before going into space. If the sun exploded right now, we would not know for another 8 minutes. Who came first, the chicken or the egg? Check the comment section for the answer. 4 more.
You were today years old when you found this shit out. I'm so sorry. Research shows that redheads are actually less sensitive to anesthesia, making them most likely to wake up during surgery. I've never been happier to be blonde. I'm so glad I don't eat pistachios, and here's why. Have you ever eaten one and thinking, that one tasted a little strange? Chances are that's probably because the navel orange worm was inside of it. The chances of worms being inside pistachios are higher than you think. You were today years old when you found out how to stay fit during lockdown and these tough bullshit times. Click the link in my bio right now. It'll take you to an app called Verve. Pop in some basic information. Yeah! Yes! Tell the app exactly what you want to work on, even if it's just love myself. I'll give you a personalized workout plan, diet plan, whatever. Trust me, this shit works. You're welcome. And finally, bathtubs are opposite boats. My brain. Let's make a deal. If you didn't know any of these or any of them shocked you, you have to share it. Elon!
This is the scary truth about iPhones. iPhones actually listen to everything that you say. And it's pretty creepy. This is why if you're ever talking about something with your friends, then suddenly whatever you were talking about comes up on your timeline hours later, well, that's because your iPhone is listening to you. Next, your iPhone tracks you everywhere you go. This is how the iPhone knows how long it takes to get to places from where you are. If you want proof, go to your settings and then hit privacy, then click location services at the top, and it will most likely say on. It's pretty creepy that they can hear and track everything we do, and I mean everything, because who doesn't have their phone on them nowadays?
Yo, what's up? Here's some scary facts about our world that you probably didn't want to know. Part 44. There is a type of shark species known as the Greenland shark that can live upwards of 200 years. One, because it is adapted to the cold water in the Arctic Ocean, and the second reason is because it'll eat anything that falls in the water. That means polar bears, penguins, and anything up above. If you were to travel to space in a spaceship, traveling the speed of light, let's say at age 15, when you came back 5 years later, you would be 20, but all of your friends, well, they'd be 65. There is a condition known as the Cotard syndrome, otherwise known as the walking corpse syndrome, in which people suffer from believing that they have never existed and that they have been dead this whole time. If you go to a Catholic priest and tell him that you murdered somebody, they can't say a word because of Catholic law, and they will keep your secret. Please don't get any ideas.
I want to tell you an emotional story, a real, authentic one. Hundreds of years ago, in an era when the Middle East was ruled by powerful kingdoms, there lived a mighty king, but despite his strength, he had a weakness, his temper. Every night, the king was haunted by the same nightmare. He would dream of losing all his teeth at once. The moment he wakes up, he rushes to check his jaw and see if his teeth are there. Night after night, the same terrifying vision tormented this king. He was desperate for answers, so he summoned the kingdom's finest dream interpreters, maesters in this field. The first interpreter arrives, and the king tells him, "O wise one, every night in my sleep I dream of losing all my teeth. What does it mean?" The interpreter hesitated and says, "My lord, this is a bad dream. It means that you will lose all your loved ones." The king's face twisted with anger. "Woe to you! Seize him and lock him away." A second dream interpreter was brought in, and the king repeated his question. The interpreter said, "My lord, I regret to say you will witness the death of all your family members." The king raged once more. "Seize him," he roared. Then the third interpreter was brought in. "O wise one, I dream every night of something horrible. I dream of losing all my teeth at once. What does this dream mean?" the king asks. The interpreter smiles and spoke with confidence. "Rejoice, my king, for you have been blessed with a long life. You will live the longest from all your family members." The king's eyes brightened, and he rewarded the man with gold. Yet, all three interpreters said the same thing. The same thing. The meaning never changed, only the way it was said. This teaches us a very important lesson. It's not about what you say, but how you say it.
We just got our first official trailer for Bambi the Reckoning, which of course is a part of the Poohniverse, and or the Twisted Childhood universe. Directed by the same people who made Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2, and Peter Pan Neverland Nightmare. We already kind of knew the design for Bambi, but I'm not gonna lie, I thought there was gonna be more than one. But it looks like we're just gonna be getting one sick and twisted, pretty much undead deer hunting people, breaking into houses as well. In the trailer, you more or less saw the premise of the movie as well, which has to do with one man that's trying to hunt down this undead Bambi, and pretty much using his own family as fodder, which I can't lie, is kinda cold. And as we know, the Puniverse Monsters Assemble is supposed to be releasing this year, which has to do with a massive mashup of all of the different movies made by the same people that made the Twisted Childhood universe. So of course we're gonna be getting characters like Bambi, Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, the Mad Hatter, Piglet, and even Pinocchio. Because if you haven't been following along, we're going to be getting a movie called Pinocchio Unstrung as well. Pretty much has to do with Pinocchio wanting to be a real boy. Just looks terrifying. The only thing they didn't show in this trailer was the fact that there was going to be undead rabbits, which was said to be more or less like Bambi's posse, breaking into houses and unaliving people just in case Bambi couldn't get around to it. But I can't lie, an undead zombified deer, this looks pretty good.
Tall Hat Man is this entity that people often say that they see at night in the room, and they say he often resembles Abraham Lincoln. And I have heard hundreds of reports and cases of people seeing this person that they describe looking like Abraham Lincoln with a large top hat. Now, my uncle, when he was a young boy, he said he was in his room one night, and he said he woke up to like a breeze blowing in to his room, which he thought was weird because he always like kept his window closed. When he looks over at his window, he said like the curtains were kind of blowing. He looked back the other way, and then when he looked back at the window again, he said there was a tall man standing next to the window. And he said he looked just like Abraham Lincoln, except this man was actually standing through his desk. And he said this man just stared at him, and he got this big grin on his face. My uncle was like so terrified he threw the covers over his head, and then he woke up the next day, he was gone. And still to this day, he does not know who that was that he saw. This next story comes out of Virginia. There was this woman, she said that she had went to her grandmother's house when she was younger to stay for a couple weeks. And she said when she would go to her grandma's, she didn't have an extra bedroom, so she would have to sleep out on the couch. So that night, she said, you know, she got ready to go to bed, and like she, you know, went and laid down on the couch. And she said all of a sudden she was awoken to the sound of her grandma talking in her sleep from her bedroom. And she said she goes to her bedroom and she hears her grandma saying, "He's coming, he's coming. No, 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 he's coming." And she is like, "Grandma, you okay? Grandma, you okay?" Her grandma, you know, was just sleeping. So she's like, you know, she must be having a bad dream or whatever. She goes back to her couch, she lays down, and she said, you know, she finally fell asleep. Well, she has this dream. And she says in this dream, she is outside of the house, which happens to be near the woods. And she starts walking through the woods. And she says as she's walking through the woods, she keeps hearing someone chanting, "He's coming, he's coming." And she said it just kept getting louder and louder. And she said all of a sudden she found herself back at her grandma's house. She goes up to the back door, and she said she walked inside to the living room. And she said she could see a man standing next to her on the couch, dressed like Abraham Lincoln, with this big, tall top hat. And she said he was just staring at her. She woke up immediately after this, and she said she looked around the room. She didn't see anything. She said the next day, in the morning, her grandma tells her, you know, "I had the craziest dream." And she said, "Well, what's that, Grandma?" She said, "I dreamt that some man was staring at you on the couch in this tall black hat."
She was beaten to death with a cinder block, and nobody knows who did it. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of Frances Bemis. Viewer discretion is advised. Frances Bemis had a pretty busy life. She had gone to college in Georgia and also in California. She then became a department store public relations executive and also a fashion consultant. After she retired from that, she found herself in St. Augustine, Florida, and she owned the Maria Sanchez Apartments. Frances was a member of the Humane Society, she was a part of the local art association, and she also was a very vocal person when it came to human rights. And she was an activist for the Black community there in Florida. On November 3rd, 1974, the 70-year-old woman would take her nightly walk around St. Augustine, but on this particular occasion, she would not come home. Armed only with a flashlight, she always felt safe in this neighborhood. But the morning after, police were called because they found Frances's body. She was found just by this vacant lot near some just piles of dirt. And it was more than obvious that she had been bludgeoned over the head with a small cinder block. And she was beat several times. And she had been partially set on fire. It's honestly kind of unbelievable that nobody discovered this until the following morning. Allegedly, sometime around 7 p.m. the night that Frances would have been attacked, there were some people who called the police saying they heard some loud noises and the sounds of someone choking. Police allegedly went out, but they didn't find anything. So who knows if they even went to the right spot. Well, police then find out that, coincidentally, Frances was very good friends with a woman named Athalia Lindsley. Athalia had been found brutally murdered on the steps of her home just a few months prior to Frances's murder. Frances was very vocal about who she thought did it, and then she ends up dead herself. Eventually, Athalia's next-door neighbor was arrested and charged with her murder, and I don't believe they found any connection with him to Frances. Frances was just this sort of sweet, unassuming old lady. She didn't get involved in anything nefarious, and this may have just been an extremely random chance encounter she had, and she was just murdered by a random assailant. But who that person is, they have never found out. This happened in 1974. It's been almost 50 years. Whoever killed her is obviously very old now or possibly dead. Hopefully they're still alive. I don't know if they've tried pulling DNA from certain things or not, but if you have any information, you can call 888-277-8477.